Smack in the middle of Tokyo, one of the busiest, most crowded megacities on the planet, you'll find something that feels, well, impossible. A massive, deep, dense forest that feels like it's been there forever. But here's the thing, it hasn't. It was man-made, born from this incredible experiment that's now over 100 years old. Today, we're going to break down the story of Meiji Jingu's forest, the brilliant science behind it, its sacred purpose, and the modern-day battle that's going to decide its future.
So let's start with the question that kicked this whole thing off. After Emperor Meiji passed away back in 1912, the nation, of course, wanted to build a shrine to honor him. But the landscape architects behind the project, they asked a much bigger, much weirder question. Could they actually design a forest that would plant itself, manage itself, and basically sustain itself forever?
And their ambition was just enormous. Their goal was something they called the Aien no Mori, the eternal forest, a completely natural, self-renewing ecosystem. And their starting point? Well, it was just an empty, barren plot of land right in the middle of a growing industrial city. This was a massive national project, bringing together the best scientific minds in Japan to try something that had, frankly, never been done before.
Okay, so how in the world do you turn an ideal like that into a real living forest? This wasn't just about, planting a bunch of trees and hoping for the best. It was about designing a living system, a meticulous scientific experiment that was designed to unfold over 150 years.
Now this is where it gets really interesting, because the first big challenge they faced was a conflict. Public opinion, the politicians, they all wanted a majestic cedar forest, kind of like the one you see at Japan's most sacred shrine in Ise. It was the traditional, expected choice. But the scientists, led by the brilliant Dr. Seiroku Honda, they said, nope, not going to work. Their research showed the soil had bad groundwater, and more importantly, all the air pollution from nearby trains would just kill those delicate cedars. The popular idea was a non-starter. The scientific conclusion? They needed a tougher, more resilient broadleaf forest.
So here's the crucial part. They designed the forest to literally evolve on its own. The idea was to kickstart the process using this natural principle called ecological succession. Basically, they'd plant certain trees that would eventually be replaced by others, letting the forest find its own natural balance over time. And to make it all work, they established one single ironclad rule. Nothing that falls in the forest is ever taken out. No raking leaves, no clearing fallen logs. Everything just becomes part of the soil, creating this perfect, self-fertilizing, self-sustaining loop.
And they actually mapped it all out in a 150-year plan. It's wild. First, they planted fast-growing trees like pines and cedars to act as a sort of nursery. These trees would give shade and protection to the slower-growing but much tougher broadleaf saplings like oak and camphor planted right underneath them. Fast forward about 50 years, and those broadleaf trees start to catch up. After 100 years, which is right about now, those broadleaf trees have totally taken over and become the dominant canopy, exactly like they predicted. And by year 150, the forest should be a fully matured natural ecosystem, completely indistinguishable from one that grew all on its own.
So, the big question, did it work? The answer is 1,000% yes. Today, this man-made forest is a biodiversity hotspot right in the middle of Tokyo, supporting over 3,000 different species of plants and animals. The 100-year-old experiment wasn't just a success, it was a stunning success.
But here's the thing, the story of Meiji Jingu isn't just about the forest. The entire complex is really split into two very different, very distinct personalities. And to understand the challenges it's facing today, you really have to get this dual identity.
So on one side, you've got the Aien, the inner garden. This is the sacred, quiet heart of the shrine. It's where you'll find the eternal forest and the main shrine buildings. It's designed for stillness, for reflection, for Japanese tradition. Then you have the Aien, the outer garden. And this is a totally different vibe. It's a public, active, Western-style park designed for the people. A place for sports, for art, for recreation.
I mean, just to give you a sense of the scale and reverence of the Aien, the inner part, look at its famous Great Torii Gate. It's the biggest wooden torii in all of Japan, and it was built from a single Taiwanese cypress tree that was over 1,500 years old. It's just this powerful symbol of how sacred and timeless this space is meant to be.
And in complete contrast, the Aien was always meant to be this bustling secular space. It's home to the iconic Jingu Avenue, the National Baseball Stadium, and a rugby stadium. Its entire purpose was to be a public hub for culture and athletics, a gift to the citizens of Tokyo. And this distinction, right, between the sacred Aien and the public Aien, it is at the absolute heart of the conflict that's brewing today.
And that brings us to the present day. where a massive, and I mean really controversial redevelopment plan for the Aien has pitted the needs of a modern city against the legacy of this incredible century-old green space.
So why redevelop in the first place? Well, according to the developers, and that's a group that includes Meiji Jingu itself, plus some major corporations, there are three main reasons. First, the sports stadiums are almost 100 years old and they have serious safety and accessibility issues. Second, just maintaining the huge green spaces of the Aien costs over $1 billion yen a year. And since the shrine can't take public money, they say they need this redevelopment to generate income to pay for it all. And finally, they argue the plan will actually increase public open space and make the area safer in case of a disaster.
But as you can imagine, the plan sparked immediate and huge public outrage. And the emotional core of that opposition really boils down to this one thing: the plan to chop down hundreds of large, mature trees in one of Tokyo's most beloved public parks to make way for new stadiums and high-rise buildings.
So, in response to all that outcry, the developers released a revised plan in 2024. Let's just look at the numbers impartially for a second. The number of mature trees to be cut was lowered from 743 down to 619. They also promised that after new planting, the total number of trees would actually be 400 more than there are today. And crucially, they moved the new baseball stadium further away from that historic Ginkgo Avenue, from about 8 meters to 18 meters, to protect the roots. But for opponents, cutting down any mature trees at all and adding skyscrapers is just unacceptable.
And this is not a quick project. They're calling it a chain reaction redevelopment, designed to keep the sports teams playing without interruption. One building comes down, a new one goes up in its place, and the whole cycle just keeps repeating. What that means is the area is facing a decade, maybe even more, of constant construction starting in 2026.
So, you can see how this local battle over trees and stadiums connects right back to that original visionary idea of the eternal forest. It brings up an eternal question for every single modern city.
You know, the scientists who designed Meiji Jingu's forest were a century ahead of their time. Today, we'd call what they created urban green infrastructure. It's not just a pretty park. It's a living machine that cleans the air, cools the city, and supports biodiversity. The forest in the Aien alone absorbs an estimated 600 tons of carbon dioxide every single year. It is a truly vital environmental asset for Tokyo.
And this quote really gets to the fundamental tension here. On one hand, you have the very practical need to modernize and fund these spaces for the next 100 years. But on the other hand, there's this deep sense of duty to preserve a unique green space that was gifted to the city. It's a classic conflict between private ownership and public good, between progress and preservation.
And that leaves us with a final, really powerful question. The 100-year vision for Meiji Jingu is all about creating an eternal, natural space inside a city. And now, that vision is colliding head-on with the commercial and practical demands of the 21st century. The outcome of this fight in Tokyo is going to echo far beyond Japan, and it's asking all of us, what do we truly want our cities to become?